We have realized over the years that the old model of the lone wolf investigative reporting, hoarding information and scooping others is no match to the challenges of the world we have today. So we have decided to invite all these lone wolf investigative reporters to come out of their caves, to meet one another, and to find a new way of collaborating.
So with your, I would say, decades of experience and multiple award-winning investigations you have made, how is the situation for investigative journalism today, and how do you see the future?
I am an optimist, and I see the situation of investigative reporters today as one of immense opportunity. We are working in networks, we are meeting one another in ways that never happened before, and we also have more information, more data, and more documents at our disposal. So if you combine the human bonds that we have developed with one another, the networks that connect us across borders, and the data that then, by virtue of those networks, can be shared, is a pretty, I would say, explosive combination. It can be an opportunity for reporters to do the best work of their lives, to do it also in a little bit safer way, because when a reporter is part of a network, the network also protects you. That if you take down that reporter, you're going to have to take down the other 300 that are working with that reporter. It's not easy or as easy today to kill the story. Perhaps you can still, and they do, kill the reporters, and we're seeing cases, especially in Latin America, of vicious killings of investigative reporters. But the stories are living on more than I would say than before. Reporters are picking up the work of their killed colleagues or harassed colleagues and continue to apply pressure on those power structures that don't want investigative reporting to exist anymore.
Hundreds of journalists are in jail, almost 200 in Turkey alone. We have colleagues in Azerbaijan who is in jail. We have colleagues in Myanmar who is in jail. What can we do better?
Well, I think that we need to reach out more to our colleagues, especially in places like Turkey, in places like Honduras, like Mexico, where they are really living in what we can say are like often captured states, states that are captured by organized crime, media that is captured by organized crime. So we need to be much better at identifying who are the courageous, thorough investigative reporters out there who are voicing these stories, who are writing these stories, and who sometimes still are working in great isolation, and invite them to be part of our networks, work with them, share information with them. I think that's one of the best ways to prevent the worst that can happen to these journalists.
So the more focus there is on one particular threatened or endangered journalist in a country like Azerbaijan, the more you can write about him or her, the more focused it will become, the more untouchable he, she will be.
And it's not only the more you write about a journalist in a particular censored country, but also the more you try to work as an equal with that journalist, working together on stories. Maybe the journalist can't publish in that country, but you can publish outside of that country and apply pressure. And it's not only you, but maybe 10 of you who can publish in other European countries or in other countries around the world. We need to be much better, not only in physical security for journalists working in extreme censored conditions, but also in digital security. At ICIJ, I don't let any of my reporters communicate with any reporter, for example, in Russia, if they are not using encryption, PGP encryption. There's just like no email. Even if you're saying, what are you having for lunch today? I'm sorry, you're going to encrypt it. I don't care what you're saying. There are certain lines that we don't cross because it only takes one contact. It's not sometimes it's not just what you say in the email, but it's just the fact that you are contacting a reporter in Turkey or in Russia that can get that reporter in a target list or even killed. So we need to be much more aware of how we also expose our colleagues in other countries by being careless with digital security.
your colleague and boss Gerard Ryle yesterday said during a seminar, we have to rethink journalism, reinvent in a way. Is that part of the strategy from ICIJ?
We have to reinvent journalism the way that we used to do journalism before, where again we were working in isolation, we were not making the most out of technology, and we were not looking outside of our national borders. That is not enough. Anybody who thinks that the Donald Trump story is a story that is going to be done in the United States doesn't know anything about how the real world works today. That stories is spread all over the world, especially in Central Asia. And that's where the documents and the data is that may reveal the full persona of President Donald Trump. In places like South America and Central America, that's where we see the nexus, a very clear nexus between politics, private money, and drug money. And is that the connection of those three worlds is a big story, and it's a story that we as journalists, need to be focusing on more. Those drugs are going all over the world. They are the ones that people are buying in Europe and in the US. And so it's not a Mexican story, it's not a Honduras story. Again, it's an international story, it's a global story of public concern. So one way to help our colleagues is to involve ourselves in that story, in the story of corruption and drug trafficking in places like Mexico and Honduras, and show how that story connects with countries around the world, and not let them to be at the forefront alone of telling that story in an incredibly dangerous place as Mexico has become. It's outrageous because we're talking about democratic countries as well. Again, democratic countries where journalists are falling basically every month. There's no investigation. There's a captured state by criminal elements where the police departments are working for the narcos and not for the people. So reporters are in an impossible position. Many of them are leaving the newsrooms. Newspapers are being shut down entirely because the owners cannot in good conscience continue to see their reporters fall one by one, being killed in the most vicious way. So if we're not outraged as journalists about what is happening, if we think that the Mexico drug story is not our story, that is something separate from us, then there's a problem with our profession and the way that we are thinking about our role as investigative reporters.